Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to a live webcast called LUMS Live. And the idea is that we keep the communication going and keep the dialogue going. We'll invite experts on this panel, and hopefully you'll see more of these sessions. And we're honored and proud that we have three eminent people with us today. We have Dr. Arshad Ahmad, the VC of LUMS. Dr. Thank you and welcome. We have Dr. Sabieh Anwar, Dean, Syed, Babar School of Science and Engineering. Dr. Welcome. And we have, of course, Dr. Zulfiqar Mir with us, a highly qualified doctor, American board certified, and specializes in geriatrics and palliative care. All three of you, a very warm welcome, and I hope that you're enjoying a nice quarantined Sunday morning. I'd like to start with Dr. Arshad. Dr. Saab, you're heading LUMS, and leadership, it seems, has changed in the last couple of weeks, whether you're a global leader or leader of an organization. Tell us what leadership challenges are that you're facing in LUMS today.
Thank you. Thank you, Adeel, and Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's a great question, and I think it's applicable to leaders, whether you are in a small, medium, large, it doesn't matter. If you're at home, leading your loved ones or playing a role of leadership, then similar questions apply to you as well. So really good question. The great challenges, I think, are common for all leaders, leading from behind or from the front. And they really are to, I think maybe if you can bucket them into three areas, the ones that come to my mind would be first and foremost, health, well-being. You know, the well-being of everybody around you, the ones you're responsible for, that's number one. And without that, we can't really think of anything else. So that's foremost. And there's a host of issues if you start unpacking those challenges. Right next to it, just as important, of course, is open lines of communication so that we are sharing expertise that we come across or the ones we have amongst ourselves. Very, very important to keep those channels open and challenging, because a lot of those communication channels that have been available to us, we haven't been using them very effectively in the past. So there's a double challenge there that in theory it sounds good, but to put it in practice, like we are here, for example, is a good way of thinking about that challenge. The third one, I think, has to do with the core business of what you're doing. And at LUMS, of course, it's research and teaching. And more significantly these days, providing service to the communities. So on the service front, I think the challenges are obvious, which is to think about others before you think about yourself. And how do you actually do that? In terms of our research, the research has a little more flexibility, perhaps, because it isn't as time-bound, and yet it has to get done. So many experiments that are underway, they have to be recalibrated and so on. Grants and all the other logistics in keeping your research going. Of course, there are challenges around that. And finally, the most obvious one that we are bracing ourselves for in working together is about teaching online. So how do we connect with our students? How do they connect with us? How do we assess them in different modalities, and a host of issues when you unpack that one as well. So again, the three top ones are health and well-being, welfare of those we care for and are responsible to. Second, to do with ensuring that there's communication lines open. And the third one, your core business, whatever that might be.
Excellent. Speaking of health, I'm going to jump to Dr. Zulfiqar. Dr. Saab, tell us, we hear so much stuff these days, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. And of course, we live in a society, I guess, or in a world where conspiracy theories and misinformation or disinformation, disseminates very quickly. What is it that one needs to do really to safeguard ourselves against the virus? What are the 1, 2, 3, 4 really basic things that everyone needs to get right?
Thank you, Adeel. Can you hear me? First of all, can you hear me?
Ji.
Achha. तो सबसे पहली चीज जो मैं रेकमेंड करूंगा वो है अपना व्हाट्सएप आप बंद कर दें, ठीक है ना, क्योंकि उस पे जितनी मिथ्स और गॉसिप्स आ रही हैं एंड दैट्स लाइक अनबिलीवेबल एंड दैट इज लाइक directly causing severe anxiety in people. Okay, now really, I mean, the answer to your question is very simple, and that is in any respiratory epidemic, pandemic, the basic thing is about practicing what we call universal precautions. And when we talk of universal precautions, it includes meticulous hand washing and preventing ways to stop the transmission of respiratory or air droplets. Uske liye, aap agar if you're outside, in the company of people, then you wear masks, and that is pretty much it. And followed by a concept which has come up by the name of social isolation, social distancing, and inshallah we can talk about that. So these are the basic tenets of what we should be doing right now.
Thank you. And it's interesting that you mentioned WhatsApp being number 1 and the other being number 2 and 3. I think that's the right order. Dr. Sabieh, back to academics and back to work. You're leading a committee called the Ped-tech committee. What is it? Tell us a little bit about that.
अदील साहब, बहुत शुक्रिया। जो पेड-टेक कमेटी बनी है, इसका बुनियादी मकसद यही है कि जो इस नए मंजर में हमारा जो कोर बिजनेस है, विच इज़ एजुकेशन, उसको हम किस तरह अनइंटरप्टेडली उसको जारी रख सकें। और जाहिर है, जिस तरह अरशद साहब ने कहा कि our main task right now is to think about others before we think about ourselves. This principle has to apply to our teaching as well. And teaching, when we teach online, it's a new vistas altogether. It's a new game out there. It's a new landscape that we're trying to navigate. And in this new landscape, we have to reorient ourselves as faculty members. And of course, students also have to reposition themselves. And it's for the first time that our faculty and our students have to think more about the human aspect of education. So I think it's bringing compassion and humanity into our interaction with the students, which is foremost. And this has to reflect in how we teach. And it's for the first time that our faculty have to think that our students, they're not just mere students, they are co-creators of the educational environment. So faculty and students are together coming up with this new ecosystem that we call an online learning or an online or a technology-inspired pedagogical system in which students and faculty are working together in, number one, winding down this semester, number two, enhancing and sharpening their learning outcomes in new creative ways. And the Ped-tech committee is actually constituted to enable this new kind of relationship, this new kind of contract that we are entering into with our student community. So this is what the Ped-tech committee is all about.
Excellent. And I love the term that you use, that students are co-creators of the environment in any university, for instance. Dr. Arshad, there's a great line in a film where someone said, in chaos, there's also opportunity. So God forbid, there's no chaos yet, but let's call it challenges. So in challenges, there are also opportunities. So do you see any imminent or long-term opportunities for LUMS or any university given the circumstances?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think आपने film में देखा है तो actually if you look at the Chinese meaning for the word risk, right? It has two meanings actually. Now I can't pronounce the Chinese version of what risk means, which is another way of expressing challenge. but one meaning has to do with uncertainty, right? And there's a big discussion around how you measure that and how some of it is known, some of it is unknown, some of it is unknown. So there are all these categories of uncertainty and risk. But the other side is precisely what you said, which is opportunity. So it's a two-sided way of thinking about it. And it isn't new. It's something that has always been there. You know, we're always facing risk, whether we are traveling to our work or whether we have other health issues and so on. There's risk everywhere we go. And how does one sort of come to terms with the risks that face each of us in different degrees? So when it comes to the institution for LUMS, of course, there are many opportunities. And Sabieh Saab just mentioned some really important ones. Because, you know, when we're thinking of using a different modality, a different medium to read, what we're doing is really paying more attention to the more underlying mission of the university, which is to, you know, excel in our pedagogy. We do three things at the university. We do research, we disseminate that research through our teaching and through engaging our students, and then of course we serve society. And it's in all of these endeavors that opportunities are multiplying, I think, as we speak. So we can reach broader audiences, for example, through online instruction. That is a very huge opportunity. Some universities have taken advantage of, and now the entire world is going to be competing in a much broader landscape where you can reach anybody anytime, where the parameters of how learning took place suddenly get completely disrupted and transformed into anytime, anywhere learning. So there's that big opportunity there. Then there is the opportunity not only of access, but the opportunity of thinking of how we spend our time. You know, we're slicing up our time very differently now. I certainly am. The way I get up, and we were just talking about how we even dress every day. It's different. How we interact with the people that we work with, very different. But it's an opportunity to re-engage and rethink, reflect on what is really meaningful, you know, what counts. Because a lot of things that used to occupy our energy is not occupying us anymore. So there's opportunity of time being released to us to make choices, new choices. And those choices are critical, filled with opportunity.
Excellent. And, you know, lots of us need to relearn how to make choices because they were made for us by the professors or the teachers or, you know, our workplace. And it's wonderful that people are now in charge of their own time. My brother is a medical doctor, he's a psychiatrist, works at the New Hospital. And he was mentioning the other day that so many cases have increased of domestic violence because people are living together and husbands are not going out for work. So there's also that. Dr. Zulfiqar, now, you know, we talk about flattening the curve. So the last numbers that I checked on the website, they were about 63,000 cases, slightly going up every day because the data keeps on pouring in. You know, and unlike the First World War, where nobody knew what needs to happen before we stop. So what needs to happen medically before the lockdown is lifted and the world can start coming back to its, you know, if that was normal, coming back to normal?
So this question, again, excellent question. But I mean, it contains many, many different questions in that one question. So first thing we need to realize, Adeel, is that we are not in the containment phase anymore. We are in the mitigation phase. It's a pandemic, it's all around the world, and it's spreading like crazy. Now, the difficult and the most difficult thing to understand about so far is the behavior of this particular virus. For example, generally speaking, new viruses affect elderly and children. This virus usually does not affect children, although scattered reports of children dying from the virus are coming in slowly, albeit very slowly. So generally, if you look at the age-specific mortality, people under 50 years of age are affected, but they recover. And then the mortality rates, the death rates exponentially rise, as all of us know. अच्छा, मगर बच्चों को affect नहीं करता. दूसरी बात, respiratory viruses generally go away in the summers. Having said that, Australia has thousands of cases. Southern Hemisphere में इस वक्त गर्मी है, और अब वो सबसे cold weather उनका जून जुलाई में होता है. So God knows what's going to happen there. So this virus is not following the regular patterns. So keeping the behavior of the virus and what has this virus done so far, there are 3 possible scenarios which the experts are predicting. Number 1, and this is extremely unlikely to happen, and I'll tell you why. And the response in the first scenario is that the whole world has a coordinated response. All of a sudden, every single human being starts practicing basic hygiene. They have the requisite protective personal equipment. They place themselves in voluntary self-isolation. They socially distance themselves, practicing excellent citizenship, and appropriate testing is taking place. And now, mind you, testing has a very clear-cut and defined purpose. Testing का मकसद क्या है? आपने केस को डायग्नोज करना है, उसको क्वारंटीन करना है, उसके बाद उसके कॉन्टैक्ट्स को ट्रेस करना है और उनको आइसोलेट करना है. This is the purpose. This is how a pandemic is controlled. Obviously, this is not happening, right? Human beings को ये आप socially distance की मैं पहले भी बात कर रहा था कि भी social distance maintain करें. And keep in mind, 60% of the world lives in ghettos. Okay, I mean, the domestic worker which comes to my home, उसके घर में 4 औरतें हैं, जिसमें से 2 शादीशुदा हैं और उनके 2 शीरख्वार बच्चे हैं. ठीक है ना? 8 के 8 लोग एक कमरे में 6 by 8 फुट के कमरे में रहते हैं, और हम बात कर रहे हैं सोशल आइसोलेशन, सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग की. I mean, this is practically impossible for a country like us. या मेरे और आपके लिए ठीक है, जिनके हमारे 3 bedrooms with 3 attached bathrooms है, that's a different story. मगर majority of the population social distancing नहीं कर सकती. अच्छा, so बात हो रही थी एंड गेम की. तो पहला सिनेरियो मैंने आपको बताया कि एक कोऑर्डिनेटेड रिस्पांस हो पूरी दुनिया की तरफ से, और उसका बेस्ट केस सिनेरियो ये है कि पैंडेमिक 3 months में शायद कंट्रोल हो जाए, which is highly unlikely. Now keep in mind, this scenario is extremely unlikely because the human beings generally don't come together unless you want to make the entire planet of Earth, under the control of China or Singapore, जहाँ पे उन्होंने draconian किस्म के laws लगाए हैं. Second scenario जो है वो ये है कि it's actually extremely dangerous. They are predicting about 2.2 million deaths in the USA by the end of summers, and based on the explosive pattern of the virus which has emerged in New York, Michigan, etc., etc. So US has a population of 320 million. Pakistan has a population of 205 million. So अगर US में 2.2 million लोग मरते हैं, तो पाकिस्तान में 2/3 of that, 1.5 million, अल्लाह ना करे, but this is what we are looking at. All right. So होता क्या है जब वायरस फैलता है और सारे लोगों को इन्फेक्ट कर देता है, तो it has caused the damage, people die, but then it is left with nobody to infect. Okay, everybody is infected and they develop a phenomena what is called a herd immunity. Everybody who survives develops immunity. Okay, so that will take several months, and this is the trajectory we are moving towards. The third scenario is a very long scenario, and that is that individual governments and communities, they stamp out the outbreaks, sort of a whack-a-mole strategy, जहां पे भी उसने सर उभारा, ठक करके आपने उसे कंटेन करने की कोशिश की और जनाब उसको कंट्रोल कर लिया आपने. Again, the mortality, the death rates will be sky high. Projected deaths will be in millions. But eventually the virus will sort of reach an equilibrium with the human being. इसमें एक चीज है जो there's a light at the end of the tunnel, और वो है वैक्सीन. और वैक्सीन जो है उसको डेवलप करने के लिए आपके पास कम से कम 12 से 18 महीने चाहिए आपको, ठीक है ना? तो और अगर वैक्सीन जस्ट इन केस आप जल्दी डेवलप कर भी लेते हैं तो उसको मैसिव स्केल पे प्रोड्यूस करना, जिस तरह स्मॉल पॉक्स की तरह हमने पूरी दुनिया को क्या कहते हैं वैक्सीनेट किया था और उसको प्लैनेट से हमने इरेडिकेट कर दिया था, उसमें कितना वक्त लगता है? I mean, these are real questions. So the answer to your question is extremely complex and it depends on human behavior. Sorry, I lost you there for a second. Can you hear me?
Ji, we can hear you.
आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
Ji, we can hear you fine.
Acha, you can hear me. So the answer to your question is it depends on our behavior and also our ability to practice universal precautions, and finally, whether we are able to develop a vaccine. And right at this point in time, nobody knows what's going to happen.
Well, we'll stick to that, and of course, we'll hope for some, unforeseen, unanticipated miracle to happen, I guess. But like you said, nobody knows. Those of you who are watching us on Facebook, you can post a question that we can ask any of our eminent participants. We have a question from Facebook, but before I take that, I have another question for Dr. Sabieh. Dr. Saab, online courses, I was looking at कि जो हजारों डॉलर्स की हुआ करते थे वो उन्होंने प्राइस कम करके बहुत सस्ते शुरू कर दिए हैं. So you have there's an explosion of online courses. So do you suggest something in particular, any strategy for the students where they should enroll, or what kind of courses they should enroll in, or they should take this opportunity कि यार चलो अभी चूंकि काम का प्रेशर नहीं है, बाहर जा नहीं सकते, so let's do that. So take us through that.
जी, so बहुत से ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज हैं जो अब सब्सिडाइज हो गए हैं या बिल्कुल मुफ्त हो गए हैं, लेकिन लम्स में जो हम कोशिश करने जा रहे हैं वो ये है कि हम अपने इंडिजिनस टीचिंग को रोल आउट कर सकें, को डिप्लॉय कर सकें. यानी जो हमारी फैकल्टी जो कोर्सेज ऑलरेडी पढ़ा रही है उसको हम रीडिप्लॉय कर सकें 6 अप्रैल के बाद. So our strategy within LUMS is to actually take whatever we are teaching currently in the current semester to the online medium. So our strategy is slightly more indigenous and homegrown. Of course, we have all of these resources that are available online and we can all benefit from them. And many of our students will be directed to these online resources. But the main thrust right now is to reconfigure our current courses so that they can be offered online. And for that purpose, we are using different strategies. One strategy I already mentioned is that our students are going to be co-learners with us. They are going to participate in the pedagogical endeavor, which means we are going to work with the students in the learning process. The second point is that we'll have to redefine our expectations, the learning outcomes from a course. The learning outcomes that we started off the semester with, they're not going to be the same. They have to be creatively chiseled and steered in a direction which is more in line with the current circumstances we are facing. Our teaching will inevitably become more personal in this new medium as well, because we're going to talk to students. Students will be contacting faculty during their office hours. So I think there will be a greater, this opportunity is actually a leveling exercise as well. So I think there are many opportunities that lie in the wake of this pandemic. अल्लाह करे ये वबा और ये सूरत हाल जल्द बदल जाए, लेकिन जिस तरह अर्शद साहब ने पहले भी कहा कि इस क्राइसिस के अंदर हमारे लिए बहुत सी अपॉर्चुनिटी है। आप जानते हैं कि अल्लामा इकबाल ने भी तो कहा था ना कि खुदा तुझे किसी तूफान से आशना कर दे कि तेरे बहर की मौजों में इज़्तिराब नहीं। तो ये दरअसल एक इज़्तिराब की कैफियत है। ये एक it's the new normal in a way. It's a strange normal, but it's a new normal. So I think there's a lot of opportunity as far as pedagogy and teaching and online learning is concerned. And we are all discovering ourselves in the process. Students are discovering themselves. Certainly the faculty is, and I am. So I think we have to look at the positive side as far as teaching and pedagogy is concerned.
And also goes to show that as much as we think that we are in control, the humans, I mean, we're not. Every now and then something happens and we realize we're not in control as much as we think or as much as we wish that we were. We have a question from Muhammad Tariq on Facebook, and Dr. Arshad, I would like you to reply to this. Tariq sahab पूछ रहे हैं कि there's a confusion going on. Government says कि 31st May तक classes नहीं होंगी. So classes 31st May से पहले हैं, नहीं है? Is there a specific directive? So can you enlighten our viewers on that?
Sure. I can try my best. I just wanted to, when something Sabieh just said, I just want to highlight, he just gave a wonderful quote. In a normal classroom, if you're lucky, you would grab the reference. But right now, you can replay that little piece that Sabieh just said, because this is a recorded broadcast. One of the advantages of communicating, connecting with other people is you can, re-listen, redo, and learn at your own pace. So just wanted to thank Sabieh for the wonderful quote and to remind our viewers. The question is a critical question, very important question. And look, we all want to go by the regulations, undoubtedly. There's no university that wants to play by its own rules, because we're in this together. And we are all part of a bigger system and want to live as good citizens, as people have pointed out. But having said that, part of the leadership challenge is not to wait for regulations to come and play a wait and see game, but it's to be proactive and prepare for what we think is best for our students, and at least prepare for those circumstances. So all of us in the senior leadership, and I think the sentiment was felt just as strongly with faculty and staff, was that we wanted to continue the learning process as soon as possible without breaking any regulations. So the government had said April 5th, the plan was to come back. In fact, their plan was to come back to campus. We never thought that was a realistic one, and we were preparing accordingly. All the campuses are emptied out. Having said that, we also thought it's important that we prepare the best we can to continue learning, just as the way the Ped-tech team and Dr. Sabieh have been summarizing. Now, the regulations keep changing. So last night I got one which directly answers the question. Sorry to lead up to the suspense, but here it is. Last night we were told by HEC that there will be two types of universities. They're calling them one advanced universities and another one lagging universities. A poor choice of words, but nevertheless, I think we get what they're saying. They're saying for advanced universities, just continue on. Whatever plans you had, teach for the rest of the semester. In fact, also think ahead for the summer and the fall. So all the complete green light to the so-called advanced universities who are ready, in other words. The lagging universities who feel they are not ready, they don't have systems in place, they cannot give quality education at this time, are being allowed to not have any classes until May 31st, and they are supposed to use that time to gear up to teach that during the summer. So that's how they are lumping this. Now they are, to their credit, giving a whole bunch of resources for universities to try and level the playing field, so as to speak, and help each other out. And I think that's the most important message I get from HEC is we have to think beyond our own students, and we have to think about the country, and we have to make what is working for us available to others in this new world of connecting online. So I hope that answers the question.
Wonderful. We have another question from our friend Amir Khan, aimed at Dr. Zulfiqar. Dr. Saab, China mein or Singapore mein, China mein more so perhaps, you had mentioned that the draconian laws had kind of, played a role. So Amir Khan ka question ye hai ki Pakistan mein kaise hoga? Our existing social action in Pakistan, would those be enough to curtail this virus and this pandemic? Kind of marrying the medical community and the political community, I guess. So Pakistan mein kaise chalega silsila?
Adeel, Pakistan में ये नहीं हो सकता, ठीक है ना? Let's get this straight. It will be extremely difficult to do what Singapore has been able to do. And mind you, there is no guarantee that the virus will not re-emerge in China or Singapore, because as we know, the respiratory viruses, they mutate themselves on a yearly basis. That is why yearly influenza vaccines have to be made. And everybody has to be vaccinated on a yearly annual basis. So the short answer to your question is कि Pakistan में क्या कहते हैं नहीं हो सकता. Now, interestingly enough, I was reading some data from the Scandinavian countries. And 3 countries उसमें शामिल हैं, Norway, Denmark और Sweden. अच्छा, Norway और Denmark ने they have been able to put quarantine laws in place, etc., which is happening around the world. But Sweden ने remarkably, which is Scandinavia का हिस्सा है, और वहाँ पे उन्होंने बच्चों के स्कूल भी बंद नहीं किए, और सिर्फ कॉलेजेस यूनिवर्सिटीज बंद हैं, रेस्टोरेंट्स भी खुले हुए हैं, पब्लिक पार्क्स भी खुले हुए हैं, ठीक है, और people are encouraged to do voluntary isolation. So अगर आप उनके प्राइम मिनिस्टर की स्टेटमेंट पढ़ें तो वो कहते हैं, very interesting, and this is, हम कहते हैं कि हम हमारे सोशो इकोनॉमिक डेमोग्राफिक फैक्टर्स डिफिकल्ट हैं इसलिए नहीं कर सकते. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट अ डेवलप्ड कंट्री. ओके, व्हाट इज द प्राइम मिनिस्टर सेइंग ओवर देयर? ही इज सेइंग दैट जनरली स्पीकिंग इस किस्म के लॉज मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द ह्यूमन रेस के लिए काम नहीं करते. ओके, इसलिए हमने खुला छोड़ा हुआ है लोगों को. और इंटरेस्टिंगली इनफ, आई वाज कंपेयरिंग द नंबर्स बिटवीन नॉर्वे, डेनमार्क एंड स्वीडन. दे आर नॉट वेरी डिफरेंट. So there you go. So अब आप इसका बताएं, इसका सर क्या है, प्यार क्या है, मुझे समझा दें आप.
जिस दिन हमें समझ आएगी उस दिन कुछ कोशिश करेंगे. अभी तो I think we're all in a learning phase. When I say all of us, everybody around the world, the politicians, the medical community, the people, the teachers, the students, we're all learning, and it's, I think, still such a new thing. We're still kind of adjusting to the new lifestyle, if I may. Dr. Sabieh, there's a complete paradigm shift for the last couple of weeks, and it seems that ये जो teaching का जो method है, it will remain like this. We don't know till when. अभी तो चलो 6th April है या 31st May है, but we don't know. The truth is we don't know. So what are the new challenges for teachers and for students, I guess, because human interaction, classroom environment, group dynamics are very important. You don't really get those when you do online learning, screen learning. So what would be the new challenges for teachers?
जी अदील, मेरे ख्याल में पैराडाइम शिफ्ट तो है, लेकिन एक चीज जो मैं ज़ाती तौर पे महसूस करता हूँ, a good teacher in a classroom environment, it's very likely that he or she will be a great teacher on the online medium as well, Because what defines a good teacher is always readapting and reconfiguring based upon feedback from the students. That's what is a hallmark, a characteristic of a good teacher. And when you're doing things online, this feedback, this control mechanism is not shut out. It's very much there. So I think it is a paradigm shift because it's a new medium. The biggest challenge our teachers will face is actually becoming accustomed to the new technology. So, and there are different modes, there are different kinds of technologies that are out there. So we also have to consider the realities, the ground realities that our students face. Many of our students don't have access to internet. A large number of our students don't have access to quality internet. So I think taking everyone along is going to be the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is ensuring inclusivity and being accessible to all students at all the times. So one modality that is to be favored is asynchronous modes of learning, which means that you offer your content material, package it up into a video lecture, into a reading material, and make it available to the students so that they can learn at their own pace, at their own timings, at their own schedules, because there's a huge variety of timings issues, scheduling issues. Internet bandwidth works better at certain times than others. So I think this flexibility and this accommodation offered to the students is very important. And now, when I as a professor enter a classroom, I consider myself to be the king. The 1 hour in which the students are sitting in front of me, they're not allowed to use their mobile phones, their smartphones, and they are on the receptive end of the food chain, of the academic food chain, the learning food chain. This concept has to change. And I think one of the major challenges of our teachers is to dethrone themselves from this regal status, from this royal status, and make our students as co-learners. I think that's the biggest challenge.
Interestingly, we all need to learn how to be more humble, I guess, if nothing else.
Exactly.
Needs to be more humble. I'm going to ask a somewhat personal question. If any of you wants to contribute, do that. But here's my question, Dr. Arshad, first you. Barring the professional changes, any one or two or three good things that you've discovered about yourself or about anybody else in this new lifestyle that we kind of shoved into? Anything new that you've learned and you said, wow, I never do like that.
That's a great question. Really good question, Adeel. Thank you. And I'm so happy. One of the great things I just learned from Sabieh is his deep understanding and reflection on the changing roles and transitions that we all must undergo. And I think he captured it very, very nicely and succinctly that we're all looking in the mirror and we better take a good hard look of what matters, what does really matter. It's a philosophical question, I think, that you're asking more than a practical question. And what I see around me are things I imagined but never really saw firsthand. So I was always told, I'm fairly new to LUMS compared to people who've lived their lives here and have children grown up in front of them. There are something like 170 people living here, and you get to know them more in times like these. And one of those amazing findings for me is how people are stepping up and thinking about other people. So you had always heard that, LUMS ki values and LUMS ki people really are a closed community in the sense of sharing these values and why they get up in the morning and the things that they do. I think those things are coming into display in front view, and also things that have not been told. People write to each other. There's a student who asked a very good question recently, just 2 days ago, and she said, look, one of the things that's frustrating us, just like Sabieh was mentioning, from the student point of view, I need to spend my time helping out my community. And I won't give you details, but there are life and death issues that I'm facing in the community. I'd rather give my time there than to pick up a book and do an assignment. So why don't you understand that and stop the semester, basically? You know, I'd rather do that work than the homework. And it's a wonderful dilemma, question that she faces. And I think the response our provost made was really right, bang on target. And he said that we are all facing these different choices, some as critical as yours and others who have different choices. But all of them involve learning, as you said, Adeel. We are all going to make those choices based on learning. And we have to think beyond the moment. We have to think how we can prepare ourselves for a time longer than next week or the week after that. And will education be able to help us prepare for that new world, which we are now looking at? And so, of course, community, but they must then also rebalance their time and become co-learners, just as was said earlier, just like we have to. I mean, इसमें कोई distinction ही नहीं रही है. You know, everyone is sort of at a level playing field. We have to put our egos aside. We have to put our differences aside, because at the end of the day, they don't matter. They don't really matter. What matters is what we have to do tomorrow. How can we make someone else happier? How can we help someone, do their part? And this is about giving. This is about generosity. And my goodness, the stories I'm hearing, I'm speechless when it comes to that.
Dr. Zulfiqar, same question. Anything that you discovered or reopened?
So in my past life, I was an academic as well, and I mean, there are esteemed colleagues in front of me, although I'm not part of the LUMS community. But one thing I have learned through the years is that grades are not an indicator of success. There is no evidence behind that. So maybe that should be considered. And I would personally encourage that student to go out and work in the community and actually get a grade for that, whatever course she is taking. Number two, I think Dr. Saab ne jo farmaya, bilkul, it's spot on. Generosity is our only backup here. And I think we need to do lots of charity and sadaqah. And I think that's going to be our way out.
We have two more questions on Facebook before we log off. But before we do that, Dr. Sabieh, this is your chance. Tell us anything that's changed in your life, apart from the work life that you've rediscovered, perhaps.
Right. So I think you've asked a personal question. So I'd like to keep the answer very personal as well. In my childhood days, I read a book by Rousseau. The title of the book was Meditations of a Solitary Walker. It's a short booklet, and I never realized the importance of that book at that particular point in time. So it was about meditation and self-introspection. I think what I've learned is, number one, there's one thing called individual humility, but I've learned that as a human race, we have to be humble. There's a civilizational humility that needs to be learned. And then our students in particular need to learn that there is life beyond LUMS, there's life beyond grades, beyond GPAs, beyond online education. There's a purposefulness to anything that we do. So this is an opportunity to self-introspect, to meditate, to pray, to think about ideas, to think about things which are intangible. And I don't know how long this lockdown is going to last, but this is a golden opportunity for us as a human civilization and as human individuals to introspect, to go beyond the daily grind of life and to think about things which we generally don't see much.
Well, philosophers and poets might be right after all. Rumi said, there's a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. So maybe they were right. We have two Facebook questions. One is from Syed on Rizvi Saab. And I think I will direct this or both of these to Dr. Arshad, if I may. And the question is, do you think development of online model can complement, and once things normalize perhaps, is LUMS thinking of having two streams of face-to-face and online university in fall or summer semester? Would there be two parallel kind of modes of education?
Thank you, On, for asking the question. I never think of them as a mutually exclusive at all. I never think of parallel universes of online, offline. I mean, the younger generation, is always going in and out of these worlds so effortlessly, and we have to do the same as a university. So I always look at online as a medium, or the tools that it affords. They're tools, nothing more. It doesn't change the nature of how human beings learn. I mean, what we are doing is finding ways to amplify learning, to reach more people, to as Sabieh said, to ask hard questions, to ask difficult questions that we weren't asking before. We were just doing things as if it was, we had found the perfect answer. And learning is the most mysterious thing known to mankind, right? And womankind. So that is why all the answers don't lie with just teachers and professors and grades and so on. And learning happens everywhere. So we just do our part to be able to give people windows into their worlds that they can then develop intellectually, socially, as good citizens and so on. So online to me is not the dichotomy that I think some people want to make out of it. It's just another way of connecting and expressing and engaging and learning. And I think some of the courses will stay, some of them will go, etc. And we should embrace it. We should embrace it because we're being asked to answer some important questions.
And last question for the afternoon, Faisal Kheri Saab is asking, कुछ ऐसे हैं students जिनके पास internet connection नहीं होगा तेज, so for them online learning would be difficult. So can we teach them through correspondence? Can we do that? Will that be continued, or do we expect them to get fast internets?
So this is an equity issue, and I'll invite my colleagues to jump in as well. An equity issue means that we've always had equity issues, and this is amplified now. This is a real issue for students. Maybe a quarter of our students are in that boat who don't have access and won't, whether it's internet or whether it's bandwidth or whether it's even mobile phones, right? So the question of not leaving anyone behind means that we are proactive in providing some solutions for them, accommodating them in ways in which, whether it's a correspondence course or whether it is going to be through WhatsApp groups or whether it's going to be, if they don't have WhatsApp, obviously, we will have to perhaps give them devices, Zong devices that will allow them access. So we have to create an open doors that we just haven't thought about as carefully, but we must do so right now. Sabieh, maybe you want to add and wrap this one up.
जी मेरे ख्याल में the key is flexibility. We need to, it all starts with an open communications channel. We have to be accessible to our students. So what we've done as the Ped-tech group is that we have provided fine-grained data of each and every student and their internet connectivity, because we conducted an online survey about internet connectivity and we have received data from about 80% of the community. So we have this fine-grained data at the student level available with us, which is going to go out to the instructors. So they know if they have 15 students in the class, they know precisely who is in need of special attention as far as the internet is concerned. So with the help of data, I think our faculty and our students can come up with flexible arrangements of online learning. So this is one of the major challenges in this new transition to online that we are trying to do right now.
Okay, I think we're done for today. If anyone wants to share anything else, any last words, anything that you would like to say, or have we touched upon everything and we've exhausted our intellect? Last few seconds and then we're done. Dr. Zulfiqar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Arshad. Okay, wonderful to have you all.
Wish everybody, Adeel, just want to wish everybody the prayers and our hopes and our support, whatever we can provide. We want people to reach out to us. And we're not, because the big message I think for all of us is we're not alone in this. We may be distancing ourselves, but we really are in this together. And the university has a role to play in bringing people together, and that's, I think we are seeing that happen as we speak, and we hope this will multiply and strengthen our future more than it has ever before.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. And key words for me today were collective humility and, of course, opportunity. And all of you, please stay safe. And those of you who joined us on Facebook, thank you so much. And we'll be back again with LUMS Live soon. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Arshad, Dr. Sabieh, and Dr. Zulfiqar.
Thank you, Adeel. Thank you very much.